This is the EWN Podcast Network.
Welcome to Late Boomers, our podcast guide to creating your third act with style, power, and impact. Hi, I'm Kathy Worthington.
And I'm Mary Elkins. Join us as we bring you conversations with successful entrepreneurs, entertainers, and people with vision who are making a difference in the world.
Everyone has a story, and we'll take you along for the ride on each interview, recounting the journey our guests have taken to get where they are, inspiring you to create your own path to success. Let's get started. Hello, I'm Kathy Worthington. Welcome to our latest episode of Late Boomers. Today we have as our special guest, Kim Reed, award-winning public relations expert who in his distinguished career in advertising, publicity, and promotion has launched many of Hollywood's most iconic films, television movies, and series, as well as legitimate theater and entertainment, dining, and shopping promenades.
And I'm Mary Elkins. In addition to his esteemed career in the entertainment industry, Kim has written 3 books under the name of VK Vasapolli, 2 fictional thrillers, The Reluctant Vigilante and The Reluctant Vigilante Reloaded, as well as his book on dating after divorce, titled Getting the Divorced Guy Back in the Game Before He Misses the On-Ramp to Life. And he has a memoir in the works. We'll be talking to Kim about his work in entertainment and also about his advice to men, as well as women, about getting back in the game after divorce. Welcome, Kim.
It's a thrill to be here.
Thanks.
Great to have you.
We'd love to hear about your background and how it influenced your career choices.
Well, my background, I have a degree in journalism, and I didn't want to be a journalist, but the most logical extension from that was public relations, and I'd always been close to the entertainment industry, so to be an entertainment PR guy was very appealing to me, and that started my career at Universal many years ago. And do you want me to tell you what the first thing that happened to me?
I do. Absolutely.
I joined Universal as an apprentice publicist, and I didn't know anything about anything, which didn't matter. And so I got called into my boss's office one day, and he said, "We've got a film shooting down in San Antonio, and a first-time director and the publicist on the show is having a lot of trouble with everybody down there, and we're going to have a junket shortly, so we need you to go down there and help out." And I said, fine. I said, "What's the film?" And the film was Sugarland Express.
Oh,
You familiar with it?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I love that film.
Well, the first-time director was Steven Spielberg.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, boy. That's amazing.
And so I took care of business on that. I came back and they said, "We got another really low budget film with another first-time director. And they can't afford a publicist, so go out and see these people, put together some press materials, and we'll take it from there." And I said, "What's the film?" The film was called American Graffiti.
Oh, another great film, another classic.
It was George Lucas's first time directing. And I don't know.
A lot of first-time people on these movies.
Why did you get in on the ground floor, didn't you?
I did. I don't know whatever happened to those guys, but I came out okay. And so I came back from that, and they said, "We've got another film that we're not getting any attention for, and we need to get some traction for it, and we're going to put you out on a 3-month project with the director." Now, this guy was not a first-time director. He'd been around a while. His name was Alfred Hitchcock.
Oh, geez. I know you have stories to tell about him, but I'd like to ask you about your experience in television first. You worked at NBC and Universal and TV and MGM, Columbia. Talk about your experience on shows such as Policewomen and Falcon Crest and 30-something. There's so many more to list, which I won't. But do you have any interesting anecdotes about that?
I've been in the business for about 40 plus years. So there's a lot of experiences that I've had, and I documented a lot of them in that memoir. It's only because a friend of mine asked me about what I had done, some of the highlights and lowlights, and so I just started writing this stuff down. And all of a sudden, it became memoirs, about 70, 80 pages worth of stories. So I've got a lot of stories to tell. I don't know which one or ones. I mean, I became very close to Angie Dickinson. One of the amusing things to me on that one was, I mean, she was really the hottie in her day,
Mm-hmm. Oh,
and for
yeah.
those of us
Yeah.
at a certain age, wouldn't know her. But if you know Policewoman or any of the things that she had done, you know how hot she was. And I got a call one day from her, and she said, "What are you doing this weekend?" And I said, "Whoa, what? Why do you ask?" She said, "How would you like to be my date at the Emmy Awards?"
Mm. Can't
And
turn that down.
no, and where all my friends are taking girls to the prom, I'm taking Angie Dickinson to the Emmys. This is a very cool job. And we did.
Yeah.
We did go to the Emmys. And what was amusing about that was uh, she was divorced or getting divorced from Burt Bacharach at the time. And so things were a little up in the air, and I had to be very careful how we handled her. When you're a publicist on a TV show or a movie or virtually anything, you become their best friend, their confidant, their pal. It's more than just publicizing a show or a person. And so it was good that I was with her. Actually, I took her down there, and so we show up at then it was at the Hollywood Palladium, was where they had the awards that year, and we pull up, and there's the paparazzi, tons of them, and I thought, oh boy, here we go. So we get out of the limo, and everything is flashing left and right, and she just is used to that sort of stuff. I'm on the other side of the cameras as a publicist. I'm not in front of the cameras. And so all these flashes are going off. I must have looked like the deer in the headlights. In fact, I know I do because I have the photo. I have the photo from it. And so we made our way in there. She was nominated for an Emmy. And so she didn't win. She said, "Can we go home early?" I said, "Absolutely, whatever you like." So we go out, and I got to get through this maze of paparazzi again. And they're shooting left and right, and I always have to get in the car. So I got a call the next morning from a journalist, a woman who I've known for a very long time, and she said, "I hear Angie Dickinson had a new hot date and a new guy in her life with her at the Emmys." And I said, "No," I said, "that was me. I was with her, not some new stud that is going to be the front of the National Enquirer." And then the woman said, "I know, I saw you there. I was there. I saw you there." But I mean, I was on that show for about 4 years, and to this day, I just have just fond memories of a lot of stories with Angie. She's just one of the coolest people on the planet.
Hmm.
Salty sense of humor, and she's lots of fun.
Yeah, it seems like everybody that meets her just gets a crush on her. Because do you remember the LA Times columnist Chris Erskine? He would always write about her. He's so hung up on her. But
That's
obviously,
right.
she's a very beautiful person, obviously, inside and out.
delightful. And she's in her 90s now.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think she just turned 90, and I should give her a call.
Yeah,
Have you talked
do
to her
that.
since her work on Policewoman?
I'm sorry.
Have you talked to her since her work on Policewoman?
Yeah, yes. We actually worked on a TV movie in Lake Tahoe.
Hmm.
It was following Policewoman. So yeah, I saw her after that.
And we know you've also been involved with a number of hit motion pictures. And as you alluded to, you worked with the great Alfred Hitchcock. And we would love to hear some stories about him if you have any.
Hitchcock is just a legend. I mean, and here I am. I'm a 20-something-year-old kid working with Alfred Hitchcock for 3 months, one on
Wow.
one. And what we needed to do was, well, we needed to get some attention for the film. The film was, and if you're a Hitchcock buff, it was the second to last film he ever directed. Do you know what the film was?
No, I fail.
If you ever get caught in a trivia contest, it was Frenzy.
Mm-hmm.
The very last
And
film he directed
what's the last
was
one?
Family Plot.
Ah.
Wasn't very good. I mean, here's a guy who did Psycho and Torn Curtain and The Birds and North by Northwest and Vertigo and just, so many more that are iconic and classics and legends. And here I am, this young kid with Hitchcock every day. I was with him every day of the week, going through stuff they wanted to do. And what we wanted to do was do a retrospective of his life's work, of his films, at the LA County Museum of Art. And we had a lot of talent from his movies there, and there were screenings and panel discussions, and we figured that we could get some attention for the film with some media attending that thing too. And we did, and it was terrific. A week long with Alfred Hitchcock, but it was about 3 months of planning and preparation to get to that point to do this thing. And as it concluded, I was called by his office to come over and have lunch with him as a thank you for all the hard work I did. And and here's the problem with that huge conundrum. This is Alfred Hitchcock. You're sitting there with Alfred Hitchcock. What do you say to Alfred Hitchcock?
Yeah, what do you say?
I'll tell you exactly what you say. You say nothing. You say absolutely nothing and just let him talk. And it's exactly what I did. And as I was sitting there, I was thinking, there are probably a billion people, especially a lot of film students, who would kill to be in my seat right now.
Yeah.
Sitting there with Alfred Hitchcock. And
So he was really talkative and offered a lot, or did you have to ask a couple questions to get him going?
I did ask a couple of questions, but the only thing I remember pretty much was his style of directing was to let the audience in on what the hero is about to experience, but the hero doesn't know it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think he called it the MacGuffin.
Oh,
If
I'm
you're
kind of
familiar with it.
fascinated by one thing that you said, how you would work on this every day for 3 months, because I
Yeah.
have a feeling that's not how it's done now, is it? So much one-on-one and so much thorough examination of things with
I think
press.
it depends what the project is, but in this one, he needed to be handheld. He needed to approve a lot of stuff. I mean, because it's a week long of screenings and of panel discussions, and I needed to handhold him through all that stuff. Plus, take care of some other PR stuff related to the film that he might be involved with. And the one story that comes to mind was I went out to his office and I said, "Okay, what are you willing to do?" And he said, "I'll do three things. I'll do an AP print story. I'll do Tom Snyder. If you remember Tom Snyder,
Hmm.
you liked him. You watched him." He said, "And I'll do the Merv Griffin show."
So he just laid it out. He told you
Told
basically
me
what.
exactly what I wanted.
Yeah.
And so I get a call from the associate producer from the Merv Griffin show. We were very close, and I set up a lot of stuff with her.
Wow.
Her name was Betty Bitterman,
Well,
and
the
she said,
studio must have loved you.
well, I was a very active guy, and I said to Betty, "What's up?" She said, "We would love to have Alfred Hitchcock on the show." And I said, "Seriously, come on! This is Alfred Hitchcock. He doesn't do TV shows. It's out. I already had him in my hip pocket. I already knew." I said, "Okay, here's the deal. If I can get him to do the show with Merv Griffin, I need some help with another film that we're doing. It's called The Dawn is Dead." And I said, it starred Anthony Quinn and a young actress named Angel Tompkins. I said, "I need you to put Angel Tompkins on the show with Merv Griffin."
Mm-hmm.
And she said, "Really? If you can get Alfred Hitchcock, we'd be happy to put her on the show. We don't know who she is, but we'll put her on the show." And I already had Hitchcock in my hip pocket, and so it was a done deal. And we put her on the show, and The Dawn is Dead turned out to be the movie is dead. Nothing nothing helped that movie up whatsoever. But they had Hitchcock on the Merv Griffin show for 90 minutes,
Gee.
dedicated especially to him. So
Oh,
anyhow,
good show.
it was a lot of fun, I probably didn't even realize what was going on in my life at this point, and the kind of people that I was involved with and working with. I went from Spielberg to Lucas to Hitchcock. Whoa, baby!
Yeah, really, that's so amazing. Did you have to trade actors like that when you were working with PR at the studios, where you had to talk to television shows and say, well, if you take this person, you have to take this person?
Yes, absolutely. That's how the game is played.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely, it's
Did,
leverage.
leverage, that's it. Do you remember any other stories about that?
People that I leveraged on the show.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No, I only remember the bad experiences.
Well, the Hitchcock one sounds pretty good.
It does. It sounds very good. Not just pretty good, very good. It's really a great note for people starting out that you said that you didn't know what you were doing, and boom, you work with Spielberg and Lucas and Hitchcock. Um, let's talk about your book, Adventures in the Singling, Getting the Divorced Guy Back in the Game Before He Misses the On-Ramp to Life. You're kind of an expert on love. So how did that come about? How did that book come about? And why did you use the name VK Vasapolli as the author?
Well, first of all, I don't want to be characterized as an expert on this stuff because I just have experiences like everybody else on this planet. But mine were so cathartic that they were worth documenting in a book uh, because I had observed other people's experiences. I had my own. I had a lot of stories. I had research I'd done. I thought, I think I've got a book here. And so that's how the book came about. The VK Vasapolli is the name I was born with.
Ah,
Oh,
Yeah, I'm a Sicilian.
well,
great.
yeah, Kim Reed is quite far from being Sicilian.
Quite,
But
quite.
let's hear a lot more about this book.
Yes.
The book is predicated on the idea that guys, when a marriage or a long term relationship or even a short term relationship falls apart, it fell apart for some reason, and it might be because the guy did something wrong. I put this on the guy. The guy may have done something wrong, and maybe we can do it differently and do it better next time around. And
Mm-hmm.
that's the whole basis of the book, really, for 360, 70 pages, to give you some hints and some ideas about how it can be done better.
And do you
Well, the
think
book
guys?
talks to women too, don't you think?
One of the things that I was told by an agent was that it's not going to do very well because men don't read, especially don't read books like this, self-help books, but women do. And so I really designed this thing as a dual gender read that women could get as much out of it as men because it'll give you women a chance to get some sense of what we guys are thinking, what we're doing, and it gives you a heads up maybe on our motivation in
Hmm.
terms of establishing a relationship. And so that was the whole idea behind the book. Uh, and the biggest problem, I think, on the second time around for or third or whatever, how many times for a guy, is how do you do it right, and what do you do to do it right? You know, and the
Yeah, what
problem
are
is,
the rules about manners that men need to know?
well, there's a variety of things, and dating and finding meeting people is very difficult these days, as it has been in the past, because it was probably pretty much a bars and clubs situation. I'm not a bars and clubs guy, and so that never worked for me. And so where do you go? Where do you go to meet somebody? And the obvious answer to that is online. Well, there's two
Mm.
problems. There's two big problems with online dating. One is it is really kind of a feeding ground for predators, and the other problem is everybody lies.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Everybody lies.
oh, that's scary.
And so the women that I had dated, and there were quite a few, because I dated every whack job and every nutcase and every Fruit Loops in the entire city. You know,
I bet you didn't, but
I
but
did,
nice try.
I
Oh,
did,
gee.
I did, and it was just, it was tough. So online dating, which is a three-step process, which you probably know. I mean, you women are probably very aware of this stuff. But the three-step process, one is you connect online, and uh, and if that goes well, then maybe you trade phone numbers, and then you get a chance to listen to the voice and how they handle the English language. And if they can pronounce the word ask as ask and not asks, which I'm sure you've heard, some people just can't pronounce it right. And then if that goes well, then you set up a close encounter of the third kind meeting. You get together. And so I just one recollection is I met this woman online, and everything went well there. And we spoke, and we said, let's get together for a drinks or a dinner. And I thought, let's do dinner. I'm pulling out all the stops here. And so it was a restaurant in Universal City, and it had a kind of like a bar and a meeting area in front of where the restaurant itself was. So I stationed myself very close to the front, and and a few people walked in, and I thought, well, there's an attractive person. There's an attractive person. I didn't see her online. There's no photos online. It was just words. And so finally, she walked in, and she was an overweight, type A personality attorney. And she said, "Are you Kim Reed?" And I blew it. I blew it at that point. I should have said, "No, I'm not."
Oh,
And,
no.
and
And so what did she do? Did she just wait at another table?
no, we hooked up, and we got seated, and we were barely even seated, hardly even sat down. She said, "I have a question for you." And I said, "Yeah, well, what's that?" And she said, "What goes clop, clop, bang, bang, clop, clop?" And I thought, "Oh my God, I have no idea. What goes clop, clop, bang, bang, clop, clop?" Do either of you know?
No.
No.
It's an Amish drive-by shooting.
Oh.
Ew.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's exactly what I
That's a
said.
great way to start a date.
And
Yeah.
I thought this is going to be a very, very long evening.
A
Evening.
long dinner.
Yeah, very long.
And
Well,
that's how it started. So I think that we both knew in the first 5 minutes that there was not going to be a second date.
yeah. Well,
Yeah.
Kim, in looking back at your own marriage, what would you have done differently? And being that you've been in the dating stream, are you paying attention to your own rules that you set forth in your book?
Without question. And let me tell you a story. Let me give you an example of that. Having dated all these whack jobs and every nutcase in that city, I finally had enough. I thought, that's it. I've got a great kid. I've got great cats. I've got a nice life. I can get along without this whole dating thing, and I'm done. And then I got an email from this woman, very attractive woman, and she said, we have a lot in common. I read your profile, and we should get together. How come we haven't hooked up? And I wrote her back, and I said, well, I don't have an answer for that. Mostly I just didn't want to. I was want to be out of the dating scene altogether. And she said, well, we should get together. And I said, well, fine. And then she said, so what are you waiting for, big boy?
Oh, no.
And I said, I think I have to meet this woman. And so we arranged a dinner and got together. And that was 17 years ago, and we're still together today.
Oh,
Yay.
oh, I like that.
17 years ago. And then let me tell you what really kind of locked it in. She had, as we all do, a passion in life. I know, Mary, you've got tons. Kathy, I'm sure you've got plenty. But her passion in life was West Coast swing dancing.
Oh.
Okay. My passion in life at that time, for many, many years, was tennis. And so she was not going to enter my world because she just was not that athletic and she doesn't play tennis. And I don't want to let it go. But I'm going to immerse myself into her world. I didn't dance, didn't know how to dance at all. I thought I could be a West Coast swing dancer. And one of
Hmm.
her friends said, why don't you take some lessons and then surprise her on her birthday and ask her to dance? And I thought, what a cool idea. So I went to Arthur Murray and I said, look, you got 8 weeks to turn me into a West Coast swing dancer. I said, can you do it? They said, sure. I said, well, you haven't seen me dance yet. And I said, this is my, so I don't know if you're familiar with West Coast swing dancing, but it's a slot dance, meaning you both, the partners, dance in a slot, as opposed to East Coast swing dancing or other dancing that's all over the place. This is slot dancing. And so I was getting in the instructor's way, and she kept hitting me, and I kept hitting her, and I thought, oh boy, this is not going to work out real well. But after 8 weeks, I became a West Coast swing dancer. And so the morning of, it was like the day before her birthday, I think it was. I said, what are you going to do today? And she said, I don't know. I said, why don't you go dance with your friends? And she had a favorite place up in Ventura. And I said, because I'm going to go golf, and then maybe we can hook up for dinner later on. And she said, okay, that's a good idea. And I already put this thing in motion with all of her friends. I had the cake at the place, and it was, pretty well set.
Bravo.
And so about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I show up at this place. I've got a red rose in my hand.
Oh.
And she said, what are you doing here? And there was total disconnect because I don't dance. I should be out golfing. She said, what are you doing here? And I said, well, it's your birthday, like today or tomorrow, whatever it was. I said, I'm here to ask you to dance.
Oh, I love this.
So romantic.
And
Yeah.
so we got out on the floor and we danced. And I think we both fell in love.
I think you passed the test. But
And so that's explaining how to do it differently and do it better the next time around. Pay attention to the needs and the desires and the wants of your partner or potential partner, someone who possibly could be a keeper. Because it's not about the guys and what we want all the time. It's a lot about what you women want. And I think that's pretty well illustrated in the book.
that's great. What kind of questions should men ask on a date then? Or women for that matter?
That's a good question about questions.
Mm-hmm.
Someone sent me a list of questions, icebreakers, that on a first date, as if I needed an icebreaker question. I'm a PR guy, as if I needed trouble talking to people. But I got this long list of things, and one was, which I thought was very fascinating. If you could spend some time with anybody, living or dead, anybody, who would that be? Well,
Who did you say?
I came up with 3 people, actually.
Yes.
Well, the one was I wanted to go back like 2 or 3 generations on my family side to find out what my grandfather had done for a living because he immigrated from Sicily. But what did he do in Sicily? And what did his father do? And father before that? And so I'd like to know more about my own family history just by hanging with these guys. And number 2, I would love to have spent like a day or longer than that hanging with George Gershwin.
Oh.
I mean, the guy died when he was 38 or so. And look at the career and the life he had and the people he worked with and the wonderful music he created. Being a pianist, I would love to have spent time with him. And the third one, which gets a little weird, I guess, because I'm not a very religious person, but I thought I would like to be hanging with Jesus Christ and find out if the stories are all true.
That's what I thought you were going to say. I just had a feeling you were going to say that.
That's number 3.
And what's another good icebreaker?
Well, I tell you, the one that you don't want to ask is, do you put out?
Probably not a good idea to ask that. Any others about like cars or dream jobs or?
Not really. The problem with, and I think it's a problem, I don't necessarily agree to the idea that opposites attract. And so if you're going to ask questions, you have to keep that in mind. And to wit, there's the religion thing, and then there's the politics thing. And are you on the same page with musical tastes? Maybe you want to go see a Tony Bennett concert, and she wants to see Barry Manilow. Well, are you on the same page? No, not necessarily. Um, what about food? Is she like sushi and you don't, or vice versa? Is that a problem? Socioeconomic status, is that going to be an issue? Would you like to sleep out under the stars? And for her, being in Motel 6 is about as close as it gets to camping out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then what about ghosts, UFOs, mediums, poltergeists, afterlife? I mean, those are all, worthy of questions to stimulate conversation. But do you both need to be on the same page with all that stuff? Maybe yes, maybe no, especially in politics these days.
Yeah.
I mean, I know people, maybe including me, who have unfriended people who are not on the same page with me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
So,
I know
so there's
Yeah.
married,
Yeah.
I
a
know
lot of
married couples that are very unhappy if their spouse goes to the other side when they thought they were a certain way, which has happened a lot.
And here's the big question that you have to ask yourself, the guy, if you've read my book or not. Here's the question, and that is, when do you know that your relationship that you've got going with somebody is the real deal and maybe might turn into a long-term or longer than that relationship? When do you know? What's the trigger point? What allows you the opportunity to move forward without embarrassing yourself? But do either of you have an answer to that? What
You do.
I do.
We hope.
I have three answers. Three answers to that, and there's probably more if I think about it. Probably a lot more. And anybody who you ask this question to would have an opinion too that would probably be different than what I'm about to tell you. So there are probably a ton of answers to that. But what's the turning? In fact, I even had to write it down so I didn't forget it. Let me just. How do you know when a relationship is more than just a casual dating thing? That's the question. More than just a casual dating thing. Number
What is
How
one.
do you?
what is your answer for us?
Well, the first answer is, believe it or not, sex is not the most important part of the relationship. All of a sudden, it's not the be all do all kind of thing. I mean, it's important, but it's not the driving force in a relationship anymore.
Hmm.
I don't know if you agree with that.
No matter what age you are.
Well, that might play into it quite a bit because as you get older, you kind of been there, done that sort of stuff. Maybe it's not as important, but it's still very important. It's very important, but it's not the be all end all in a relationship, I think. Number two, you send out Christmas cards with both your names on them. That to me is a trigger point that you've just jumped from a casual relationship to a pretty solid, permanent relationship. When you send out Christmas cards and both of your names are on it. And number three is
Wow.
the most important one, and which I absolutely am guilty of. And actually, that's a bad way of saying it, but the answer is when the other person is the first person you think about when you wake up in the morning and the very last person you think about when you go to bed at night.
Mm-hmm.
That to me is when the relationship has gone from casual to a keeper.
And you still love looking at them.
Absolutely. And I'm here to tell you, after 17 years,
Wow.
we are still together.
Oh, that's so romantic, Kim. We'll talk about the importance of good communication skills.
There are two things I think that are critically important in any relationship, short term or long term, especially long term, maybe especially short term. Two things. And what would those two things be? One, honesty. I think that's critically important. Number two, communication. I think that's where everything goes south. I think that's where my marriage went south. That's where life goes south if you don't have good communication skills. And how you how you get those things is a good question. You don't have to be a PR guy to understand communication skills. But,
Well, what is taboo to talk about for both a man and a woman? What shouldn't they talk about on a date?
number one, absolutely number one, unless you don't want to talk about the last president. Number one is do not talk about the last relationship you had, whether it was a marriage or just a fling, a former boyfriend, former girlfriend. I think that probably ended more than one of my nutty dates with the woman just crying her eyes out about the guy and what he did wrong and why it didn't work out. And I don't want to hear it. I don't need to hear it. And don't want to hear it. Don't
Yeah.
really care. That was then. This is now.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's the number one thing you do not talk about is the previous relationship.
Would there be an exception to that if your spouse had passed away, possibly?
Well, that's a whole different area. And but yes, to a certain degree, yes.
Hmm.
Because following the dissolution of a marriage, or even a breakup or becoming widowed, where do you advise people to go besides the internet to meet people?
Well, I'll give you several examples, several places, and see if you agree with me or not.
Okay.
I even wrote these things down so that I wouldn't forget them.
Hmm.
This is beyond the internet. One is the gym.
Mm-hmm.
It says a lot about you that you're health oriented, that you're interested in buffing up, and you want to look good, and you may or may not meet somebody at the gym.
Hmm.
I have not, but that's okay. Number two, the supermarket.
The
Mm-hmm.
produce section.
Start a second and don't bend over because you don't want to be mistaken for the special of the week. But the supermarket,
Mm-hmm.
the hardware store.
Ah.
Women need to buy light bulbs.
Mm-hmm.
And, of course, if you're hanging around the supermarket too long, you're hanging around the hardware store too long, you'll be, mistaken for a stalker or something. I guess you have to be careful. Number three is the car wash.
Ah.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what the guy has to do is first you look at her hand to see if she's got her wedding ring on, and if there's no wedding ring on, then you check out what car she's looking at during the dry period. And if it's a really hot car, an expensive car, okay, that might want to move in there and say hi to her.
What does that tell you about her?
She's got some bucks. Anyhow, the tennis club. Even if you don't play tennis, you can learn how to play or just take care of the social aspects of it. But there are a lot of people there, especially my tennis club, who are single and looking for love in all the right places.
Mm-hmm.
The hair salon. You women talk about guys while you're getting your hair done. I know because the woman who cut my hair gives me all the lowdown on who's interested and who's not, and who's available and who's. In fact, I had one very kind of bad experience there. I got a call from my hair girl one day, and she said, "I've got the perfect person for you." And I said, "Yeah, tell me about her." And I said, "There's two things I need to know. One is, does she work? Because I don't want to be a sugar daddy. And where does she live? Because I don't want to drive 8 million miles on a date, which I've done way too many times. So, does she work? Where does she live? And she said, well, let me ask her. And I said, she's there right now? She's there? She said, yeah. Let me ask her. So she yells, hey, Susan, where do you live? And here's what I hear in the background. I live in Encino. And I said, he said, call me crazy, but I just got a little thing about dating somebody who's got a deeper voice than me. And then that's going to be a problem for me. But you can get tips, and I have several, from the person that cut your hair. I'm speaking about the guys who go to the hair salon, because all you women go regularly. And that's what you talk about. You talk about guys, and you talk about the last miserable guy and looking for the next best guy. Religious people probably can meet people at church.
Mm-hmm.
And the last one that I noted was, and it's unfortunate. Actually, it worked out for me a couple of times pretty well. But that would be well-meaning friends.
Blind dates.
Well-meaning friends. I mean, really, they know somebody who's also looking for somebody, but they know you in a certain way, and they know that other person a certain way, and the two don't necessarily mesh. And you say thank you very much, and you go on the date, and you didn't have a good time, but I did have one. It lasted quite a while. And it was because of a couple of well-meaning friends. When it comes up in conversation, how's your social life? How's your love life? How's your sex life? How's any of that life? You go, well, not so well. Well, I've got somebody for you. Okay.
Yeah. Reminds me of Bridget Jones' Diary, where she met the man who was going to be the love of her life at her parents' Christmas party. So Kim, how do you make sure your next relationship is the lasting one?
You go West Coast swing dancing with her.
Ah, yeah.
And what would you like our listeners to have as a takeaway today, Kim?
If you read the book, the last line, the very last line in the book, the very last page, the last line, the last page, kind of says it all. And that is nothing more than strive to be happy.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever it takes, after 380 pages, whatever it takes. If that helps, terrific. But the whole goal is strive to be happy. And just remember that as Wayne Gretzky once said, if you don't take the shot, you can't score.
Oh, that's so true. I love that. Thank you so much, Kim. Our guest today on Late Boomers has been Kim Reed, award-winning publicist who has been integral to bringing many of Hollywood's most iconic films and TV shows into the public forum, as well as author who writes under the name of VK Vasapolli. That's Vasapolli. Be sure to read his books. And again, his books are The Reluctant Vigilante, The Reluctant Vigilante Reloaded, and Getting the Divorced Guy Back in the Game Before He Misses the On-Ramp to Life. And his books are available everywhere.
And we want to remind our listeners to follow us on Instagram at I am Kathy Worthington and at I am Mary Elkins and at Late Boomers. We hope our podcast content is bringing you some joy and inspiring you. And you can write to us on our website, LateBoomers.biz, B-I-Z. Thanks so much for listening, and please subscribe to Late Boomers on your favorite platform. Thank you so much, Kim.
It has been an extreme pleasure.
Ours too.
Thank you for joining us on Late Boomers, the podcast that is your guide to creating a third act with style, power, and impact. Please visit our website and get in touch with us at LateBoomers.biz. If you would like to listen to or download other episodes of Late Boomers, go to ewnpodcastnetwork.com.
This podcast is also available on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and most other major podcast sites. We hope you make use of the wisdom you've gained here and that you enjoy a successful third act with your own style, power, and impact.